I'll never forget the feel of the California desert sun on my skin as we sped across the sandy terrain in our unit's cruiser. It was setting, casting a golden glow over the vast expanse of sand and rock that stretched out before us like an endless graveyard. I felt a knot forming in the pit of my stomach as I gazed out at the seemingly serene landscape. But beneath the surface, I knew we were hunting something darker. The radio crackled to life in the passenger seat, dispatch's voice a steady, calm presence amidst the chaos in my mind. "Deputies, we've got a tip about a mass grave in the area. Possible multiple fatalities. Be advised." The caller sounded nervous and unsure. My partner, Mark, shot me a glance, his eyes locked on mine. We'd worked together long enough to know each other's thoughts without needing words. We knew this was it, the call that could make our careers or break them. I felt my heart pound in my chest as I hit the gas, the cruiser's tires kicking up clouds of sand as we devoured the distance. The adrenaline was already coursing through my veins, my senses on high alert. The crunch of gravel beneath our tires echoed through the silence, a stark reminder of the danger that lay ahead. I thought back to the countless hours of training, the endless scenarios we'd practiced. This was the moment we'd always prepared for, the moment that would test our mettle, our courage, and our resolve. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles white with tension. We were on the cusp of something big, something that could change the course of this small desert county forever. And I was ready to face it head on. I'll never forget the sound of my shovel hitting something hard beneath the dirt. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the sun beating down on us like a relentless drumbeat. My partner, Jenkins, and I had been digging for hours, our sweat-soaked shirts clinging to our backs like a second skin. The air was thick with tension, the only sound the rhythmic thud of our shovels and the occasional bird call in the distance. As I dug deeper, my heart started to pound in my chest. It was a slow, deliberate beat, like a warning sign flashing in my mind. I glanced over at Jenkins, his eyes locked on mine, a mixture of concern and curiosity etched on his face. We exchanged a silent nod, and I continued to dig. The ground gave way, and I felt a jolt of adrenaline course through my veins. I was staring at a makeshift grave, the dirt hastily piled on top of it. My mind started racing, 1,000 worst-case scenarios screaming through my head. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down, but my heart was still racing like a jackrabbit. As we began to dig around the edges of the grave, the reality of the situation started to sink in. The stench of death wafted up, a metallic scent that made my stomach turn. I could feel my gut tightening, my senses on high alert. This was it. This was what we'd been searching for. I looked up at Jenkins, and he mouthed a single word: forensics. I nodded, and we both knew that our lives were about to change forever. My gut's churning as I sit at the cold steel desk, poring over the case files like they're my own lifeblood. The faces of the victims stare back at me, their stories etched in the lines of their photos like scars. I see a young woman, no more than 22, her eyes sunken, her skin pale. A single tattoo on her wrist reads, "Property of Victor." I see a middle-aged man, his eyes vacant, his hands cuffed behind his back. He's got a bruise the size of a dinner plate on his cheek, courtesy of Victor's boys. The more we dig, the more it becomes clear, these aren't random victims. They're all connected to Victor, the smooth-talking businessman who's got a stranglehold on this town. He's got a facade, a reputation to uphold, but behind closed doors, he's a monster. I can feel my anger simmering, my mind racing with the possibilities. How many more are out there? How many more have fallen victim to his twisted games? I think back to the first time I met Victor. He was charming, charismatic, the kind of guy who makes you want to shake his hand and trust him with your life. But it was a performance, a carefully crafted act. I saw the glimmer of something darker in his eyes, something that made me take a step back. Now, I'm not so sure I was just being paranoid. The more I learn about Victor's operation, the more I realize that this isn't just about a few bad apples. This is about a whole system, a web of corruption and exploitation that's been allowed to fester for far too long. And I'm not just talking about Victor. I'm talking about the people who enabled him, who turned a blind eye to his crimes. They're just as guilty as he is. This case is personal now. I'm not just a deputy. I'm a hunter, driven by a need for justice. And I won't rest until Victor's brought to his knees, and the people he's hurt are given the justice they deserve. I remember the day Detective Amelia Vasquez walked into the station, her eyes locked onto the case files like a hawk swooping in on its prey. She was a force to be reckoned with, a whirlwind of determination and grit that left me and the rest of the team in her wake. Amelia knew this case like the back of her hand, every twist and turn, every angle, and every suspect. As she delved into the investigation, I saw her intensity grow, her obsession with uncovering the truth driving her like a fuel-injected engine. She knew Victor and his gang were slick, well-connected, and ruthless, with tentacles reaching deep into the community. I'd seen it before, the way they'd silence witnesses, intimidate victims, and leave a trail of fear in their wake. Amelia suspected they had eyes and ears everywhere, a network of informants and accomplices who'd do whatever it took to protect their own. I saw it in her eyes, the fire burning bright, a fierce determination to take them down, no matter what it took. She'd work tirelessly, day and night, poring over evidence, interviewing witnesses, and chasing down leads. I knew she was driven by more than just duty. She had a personal stake in this case, a sense of justice that burned deep within her. As I watched her work, I felt a sense of admiration, of respect for this woman who'd given her all to the job. She was a force of nature, unstoppable and unrelenting. I knew that with Amelia on the case, we had a shot at taking down Victor and his gang, but I also knew that the risks were real, that the stakes were higher than ever. My gut told me this was a wild ride, one that would test our limits, our courage, and our resolve. I remember the day Amelia started poking around, like a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. She was like a dog with a bone, relentless in her pursuit of the truth. I'd seen her type before, a driven individual who wouldn't back down no matter the cost. But this case was different. This case was personal. Victor was a monster, a man with connections to the highest echelons of power in this county. I knew it, everyone knew it, but nobody dared say it out loud. As Amelia dug deeper, I could feel the tension building. It was like the air was thickening, making it harder to breathe. I'd get calls from her late at night, her voice low and urgent, asking for my advice, my insight. I'd try to caution her, to tell her to back off, but she just wouldn't listen. She was on a mission, and I knew why. I knew what drove her. I'd seen the look in her eyes when she talked about her sister, about the tragedy that had befallen her family. I'd heard the anger in her voice when she spoke about Victor's gang. This wasn't just a case to her, it was a crusade. And I couldn't blame her. I wanted to see Victor behind bars just as much as she did. But the more she uncovered, the more I knew we were playing with fire. We were dancing on the edge of a precipice, staring into the abyss. If Victor found out what Amelia was doing, he'd stop at nothing to silence her. And if I was honest with myself, I'd be just as culpable. I'd be the one who'd turned a blind eye, who'd let it all slide. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I knew I had to tread carefully, to stay one step ahead of Victor's goons. But Amelia, she was a wild card, and I wasn't sure if I could control her. I remember the air was thick with tension as I watched Amelia step out of the unmarked car, her eyes locked onto Victor's hovel. We'd been tracking him for weeks, gathering evidence, building the case. This was it, the moment of truth. My heart was a jackhammer in my chest, pounding out a rhythm that echoed through every cell in my body. I could feel the sweat prickling on my brow, taste the metallic tang of adrenaline. My eyes were fixed on Victor, his burly frame huddled in the doorway, a look of defiance etched on his face. Amelia approached him with a calm confidence that I knew was a facade. She was wired, just like the rest of us. The informant had given us the intel. Victor was holed up here, hiding in plain sight. We'd set up a perimeter, anticipating a shootout, but Amelia's plan was to try and talk him down. As they faced off, Victor's voice rose, a snarl twisting his lips. "You'll never take me alive," he spat, but Amelia just kept pushing, her words dripping with a quiet authority. I could see the fear seeping into Victor's eyes, the realization that his game was up. And then, like a punch to the gut, he dropped the bombshell. The true extent of the gang's reach, the number of victims they'd claimed over the years. The number still echoes in my head, a haunting whisper that I'll never shake. My mind was racing, processing the implications. This was it, the moment that would change everything. The case would never be the same, and neither would we. I felt a shiver run down my spine as Amelia's eyes locked onto mine, a hint of a message in their depths. We'd just scratched the surface of something much darker, something that would haunt us for a long time to come.